Have I been muted this whole time? Rusty. Rusty. Coming off of, little paternity. Okay, so, here's what I'm saying. Basically, nobody asked for any questions or anything. So I'm just going to show you some new stuff in Redshift 3.6 and 2024.4. So first things first, I'm going to show you some displacement tips and some neat stuff there with the new, so we've added a landscape, made it pretty big, we got our guy on there, we added a dome light, okay? Sorry, I was muted. Okay, now we're good to go. So if you know anything about Unreal Engine, you've probably heard of nanites, right? So it's like this crazy way to add all this geometry, like live. That's exactly what Redshift Tessellation does, okay? So when you're like, well, it's all triangles and stuff though, but let me just show you this, in case you didn't know this. I know everybody thinks everything's quad based, but check it out. Go to lines. Where is it? Wireframe. Well, it should show it, but it's not for whatever reason. But all of these are actually created with triangles. There's a diagonal line in between all of these. We used to show on that, but maybe we have to filter. I don't know. Ingon lines. I don't know. It used to be there. Now I'm sure there's something I had on that I didn't realize I had on. There's so many settings. It's silly. But yes, hidden lines used to be going on lines. Both would show that's actually diagonal lines between all this stuff. So everything's made out of triangles for real. That's kind of what helps with this tessellation and stuff. So basically the way it's going to work is we grab our landscape. And, you know, right now, if we were to throw a displacer on there, right? And then we had like some material that's just imperfections. Fun. I can type you and something like this, right? Real noisy. And what we'll do is we'll go to shading and we'll go to shader and we'll say bitmap. We can say bitmap or just load image. We might be able to just drag it in there. Yeah, drag it right in there. Boom. Okay. So now we're gonna get this displacement from this. It's gonna go across our whole image, as you can see. But you know, obviously it's real janky and noisy. So go ahead and render view this. That. Alright, so you can see it's like real janky, it doesn't look good. So what we could do first is maybe just scale everything back, right? Because everything just displacement based is very much based on the geometry, right? So now we've got a much smaller thing here. We can scale this back to like 50 then, since we scale everything down. Okay, so, but we have a lot more detail here in our bump map, but it still looks really crappy and bad, right? Let's just take this, and the first thing we want to do is, you notice it says the intensity is centered. So the way that works is everything on the map that's white is pushed up, everything that's black is pushed down, and everything that's 50% gray stays in the middle. So that is a really good way to displace things. Now the weird thing is with Redshift displacement nodes and materials, that's not the default setting, and you have to change it to that. Stupid. So we'll talk about that in a second. But you can tell what we need to do here is, you know, add more geometry. More geometry, smooths it out. Okay, we're getting a little smoother. We can lower this down to maybe like 3. Not so intense, right? Now we have like a pretty good displacement map. Looks pretty good, right? But look how dense this is. Now, if you have, you know, a bunch of things and landscapes on this that are this dense, it's gonna really bog down your scene. And we also shrunk everything down because we really want everything to be this big. Okay. And see, it's already slowing down a little bit. It's better. You know, it's a little smoother. We're smoothing it, which if we really want to be smoothing it, we can. But maybe we need to increase this back up to 10 so we can see it a little better. Right. There we go. Now, if we wanted this to actually, you know, tile here, we need to like go into the shading here, and we need to like edit it and scale it and all this stuff, right? So we need to like tile it, and you can't do that easily with it this way. So that's why the displacer modifier is really good for quick things and stuff like that. But when it comes to actually using displacement maps and things like that, you really want to use the redshift render tag. And I just showed you this so that you understand why. Okay. So here we go. Take off that. Take this landscape out of our subdivision surface. Watch our scene speed back up. Okay. We're good. We're speeder back on the ground. We're good to go. So let's just open up like Quixel Bridge and grab a material that has displacement. Very obvious one. Like probably fine. Got some pretty big rocks. Desert, out background, dirt. We'll say 8K because we need as much detail as possible when you're going to do displacement. Also, it depends on your shot. If we're going to get down. Turn it back a bit. Anyway, basically, if you're going to be really close to your shot, you need 8K. And I would say to do, you know, build everything like you're doing it like in a studio. So you would have like, rather than having your entire big landscape piece be like this 8K super dense high res thing, you would have like a foreground chunk that was really high dense, and then everything further away would be like 4K, less dense, right? So that's how I would go about doing that. So we'll say 4K. We'll say 8K. Why not? Why not? Download that. And once we'll throw it on here, and we're going to need to make it really dense for this. And obviously, the smaller pieces you have, the more tessellation and geometry you need. So tessellation, again, subsurface division. Same thing, except it's happening at render time versus happening in the viewport. Benefit to that is speed. Speed. Okay, so we got that. We'll select our landscape, undo our IPR, bridge, and export that. And that should put it right on our landscape. We'll have to take a look at that. Okay, so it's gonna come in. Yeah, it's 8K, so it's gonna take it a second. Converting. It's going to take longer with 8K. Again, it's going to take longer to render. You preview. Okay. Not then. And the cool thing is, it's already put a redshift displacement, redshift tag on our landscape, which is good. But it doesn't really save us any time because we still have to go in and override it. Yeah. But take a look at this really cool feature you may not know exists. So first thing we want to do, if you look at this right now, redshift object tag, we need to go to geometry and we need to enable it. Okay. And basically this minimum edge length, as you know, is the number that's like how many times do I want to, how small do I need to be to trigger the subdivision? Because it's not going to subdivide it unless it's needs to reach that minimum edge length. Okay. So the more details smaller the minimum edge length needs to be, the more subdivision it's going to take. Okay, but with this on and everything at default, we'll go ahead and hit play on this. It's going to be huge on here. We'll have to tile it, of course. See? But we'll go ahead and we'll say like 20 and 20, which means we're going to need like 20 times more the geometry there. That's too much. We'll say 10 and 10. That's better. We can fix the tiling and stuff later. Right now we're really just worrying about the displacement, which if you notice, like, doesn't really look that great, and it's covering up our guy's feet. So what do we need to do? Well, we come in here, our material, and we can either, switch it to the new node system or whatever. But basically what we need to do is here to the RS displacement and make sure we set this to -1. Okay? And that's going to make those black values suck down and the white values pop up. Okay, fresh. Okay, so now we can see our feet again, standing on the ground, but not really displacing that well, right? So let's just grab this and throw it in here. And you may notice that, like, every time I zoom in or whatever, I have to wait for it to do the tessellation and then come in, right? So let's go ahead and get lower, turn this up, and we'll crank this up to like 30 and 30. That should make that look a little more, yeah, rocky. Pretty cool. We're getting these little jagged bits here. So here's what we need to do. First thing I would do is I always adjust the geometry of your object first to like the limit kind of, and is that's gonna allow, okay, I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not. So you can either adjust the geometry of the actual object first, or you can adjust the subdivision surfaces. But obviously there's going to be a limit to how many times it can subdivide based on the current geometry, that kind of thing. So it's kind of multiplicative, if that makes sense. If this whole landscape was just 10 by 10, you're going to need to subdivide it a lot more with the tessellation than if it was like 1,000 by 1,000. So you kind of find out that balance of like what works and what starts lagging down your scene. So I think we can go 1,000 by 1,000 without lagging it too much. And now it's going to subdivide that, and we'll see if it improves that at all. It's like it did a little bit, which means we just need to lower our minimum edge length, because that means that it was getting to the max. It was reaching the minimum edge length. Okay, so let's go ahead and say like 2. Rebuild that tessellation, and we should get more detail and less jagged lines. A little bit better. Still getting a couple weird spots. Totally fine. We're gonna go ahead and keep going lower and lower. 1. Faster and faster. It's faster than it's ever been now. But you may notice it's taking longer and longer time. So 1 is obviously going to take 4 times the subdivision of a minimum edge length of 4, minimum edge length of 1. So time. That doesn't look that much different, right? So, okay, this looks better, but there's still some weird little jagged bits, and so that means, problem-solving wise, it wasn't actually a minimum edge length that was causing the issues. It must be something else. It must be the smoothing, or the angle, or something about it, or the bump map. Something about it is causing issues, because just increasing that didn't really affect it that much. So that means, let's pull that back. It's not 31. You pull that back to like 3. Okay. It's gonna be faster now. Take a look. Looks the same. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on smooth subdivisions. Take a look at how that affects these bits here. Not much, right? So what about enable auto bump mapping? Fixes a couple issues with the edges and stuff like that, but basically when you see stuff like this where it's like ripping and pulling, it means you're displacing it more than it's supposed to. And maybe it's this number, but maybe we need to go back in here and change this to negative 0.5 and this to 0.5. Okay. We're gonna make sure this is set to raw. It should be. Color space needs to be raw for that. That's the bump map. So there's all these things you have to test. And it's just another one of those things that I'm like, oh, why? Just work. Switching it to raw is gonna make a pretty big difference. Zone, we'll refresh. Get these weird, it's messing up, right? Change it to raw. Now we're trying to get a lot of very small detail on a very big landscape. So it's impressive that we can do it at all. But just doing that, you can tell, has really helped out quite a bit. The 0.5 and the 5, 0.5 and the negative 0.5, and well, I think we're just displacing it too much, so we'll come back down to like 20 and 20, and turn on the bump mapping back on. See if that works. We may just need to turn off screen space adaptive, but probably not. That's pretty good. I might go back in. And redo the. Okay. Okay, so here, let me just show you the difference. So we come back here, we say 500 by 50 by 500. And we tile this, we do like a 1 and 1. Cook it all. But you should see like the difference just in the spacing of the amount of geometry that we have per pixel, I guess, object. You see, it's going to be so much better. You have to find that balance with those big objects. For that's what I'm saying. If you want like to get really up close, and you want those really tight details, you're gonna need this super high detailed close map. Maybe do this. Maybe we don't need the negative numbers. It's everything's different, but I think that we do. I think it's gonna help us on it. It's very annoying, right? To keep doing this. Wait for it to cook, and then we can look at it, and then we can wait for it to cook and look at it. It's just awful. So here's what we're gonna do. Check this out. Undo. Big landscape, right? Okay. Geometry. This, we'll go back to 4 here. We're gonna say 8 subdivisions, or maybe even 12. Maybe we just weren't getting that far, right? So many variables here. It's silly. Turn smoothing off. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to put it back to, and here's how we make this work faster and be less of a headache. We hit play, and then we hit this snowflake here. That snowflake is gonna bake this tessellation in. Okay, just gonna do it one time. Done it. Now we have that live feedback, right? I think this needs to be negative 1. I think this needs to be 2. I think this needs to be 25 and 25. And I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, I think it needs to be a little bumpier. I think it needs to be a little smoother. There we go. We can refresh that. And it looks like our sticks and stuff may be poking up too much now. Maybe 25 is too much. We'll see. But what I wish is that we didn't have to do any of this. You know, it came in at 10. That looks too low. I wish you just come in and, you know, is that too much to ask? Like, just, that's kind of the thing I want to show you. That looks good. got a pretty high poly thing going on here. It's tricky. It's really tricky to get this right? Because it's a pretty obvious tileable one. Maybe we just want them all bigger rocks. Refresh every time you like change a stat like that. If you are doing the snowflake, I'm gonna rebuild it, and that way we can fly back around. So if I look at this, it's a little rocky. I think we could probably bump it back up, like 40 and 40 even, maybe go crazy now that they're bigger rocks. All kind of a balancing act. And turn off screen space adaptive, and maybe that'll help even it out. It might take a little longer now. The screen space adaptive is kind of like, it focuses more on what you can see. So it's going to focus on like what's right here more than what's across the entire landscape. But it also might get you worse results. So we'll see. Alright, so there's a 40. And down low it looks really crappy, but let's see what it looks like up high, right? Everything's different. Pretty good from there. If I do like an infinite light, right, and I go in here and go do target light, go like lowish, so I get like a shine. We'll turn our dome light down to like 0.2, and we'll turn infinite light up to like, I don't know, 30, right? I'm too hard. 10? Yeah. So now we have this nice like hard shadow across everything. You can see that displacement looks so good there. That looks great, right? You're like, oh, it's perfect. If you zoom in, it looks so great. That's why I'm saying, if you're gonna do an up close shot, you gotta do one that's so up close. So let's go ahead and just copy this. So grab this, make a copy, and we'll do just that. We'll do 100 by 100 by 5, and we'll put it right here. Like we'll maybe scale it up so like this is kind of gonna be shot, right? Grab this. We'll kind of get it, you know. We can take that. Here's the seed. Maybe scale it up a bit, and maybe make it border at sea level so we can push it into the environment like that. Okay. And that one, obviously, is smaller, so we're gonna need to. We'll scale it down to 1 and 1, and we'll take a look at that. Obviously, every time you unpause this, it's gonna have to rebake a tessellation. So you gotta wait every time. But again, we'll talk about that in a second. Fine. Okay. So you can see we have a lot more detail here. This is too much, right? So scale it back. But it is blending in nicely. That's good. Let it cook. Yeah. Even less. We'll go back to the original 10 and 10. That. So this is our up close shot. Okay. We can have that really nice. That looks good. Keeping it the original 10 and 10. And we'll see, just for science, if that looks better. I think. Right. Curious. We'll do the negative 0.5 and the 0.5 though. That looks better. Refresh. Because it looks like some of that's extruded too far, and then some of it looks like it's right. So that's what's good. What I want is to drag a material in. That'll work. That looks pretty good. The negative 0.5 and 5. But now, you know, we're having to, again, that displacement, we kind of raised it up over his feet, so let's put him back on here. We just want to make sure his feet are still on top, right? Good. Good. Because what happens is if you don't have that set to suck down and pull up, it's just going to go and cover up his feet. Now, we have like, you know, a shot where we can get really close. And we have a shot where we get... Obviously, we'd want to, you know, take that, make it editable if we want, and just grab a mesh tool, and grab a sculpt brush, and we can just grab it. So, let it cook. Yep, and we'll just kind of grab that and pull it down. Grab, 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 click, 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 pull. Obviously, probably better if we weren't rendering that. That's just gonna kind of probably we should, but not, but you know, whatever. Probably a better way to do it. But it's gonna give it kind of a natural kind of look. Okay. Rather than this sharp line to kind of fall off into it. All of this to say that this is how, you know, troubleshooting displacement works. All this stuff, and then I'm going to show you a cool trick that is coming to Redshift so that you can kind of ignore all this and bypass it. Yeah, so that worked somewhat. It's a little awkward, but you could cover that up with a bush or something. Sure, a rock, more rocks, whatever. Okay, so right now we got the snowflake going. We let that cook, and now we can walk around. Pretty cool. Okay, happy with that. Displacement looks good. Okay, let me show you something really cool. How do I want to do this? Let's get rid of this. We'll just, you know what? We'll leave it. We'll just hit RT. We're gonna go to the real-time render. So this is like basically a new feature of Redshift 3.6, and it's gonna make Redshift work a little more like Unreal Engine. If you ever worked in Unreal Engine, it's a real-time render engine. The way it's real-time is that when you bring any asset in or anything, it takes forever to load in comparatively to C4D, because it's doing a lot of like pre-baking and pre-shader caching and all this stuff. And that's why it's able to render it out faster, because it's having to do less work, because it does it all on the front end. So that's what the real-time render is going to do. It's loading all the textures and shaders, and then it's going to process the hierarchy. And you know, you can see we've got the materials here, but the one thing that's really cool is you may notice that our snowflake without the G is gone, and that's because real-time render now does automatic tessellation. So you don't have to hit the snowflake and bake it in and do all that every single time. It's just going to do it automatically. It's going to use the same settings and stuff, but now, you know, you don't have to worry about hitting refresh or doing all this when you make changes. It's just going to automatically tessellate that, just like nanite technology does when you get closer and all this stuff. There we go. So now we have this. Our scene looks exactly the same, and now we have this real-time response. Everything's built right in. Boom, 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 boom. Very cool. The real-time shader is pretty wild. I think I've been sleeping on it a little bit because it was really bad at first. But if you notice, we can come in here, turn on some bokeh, depth of field, focus on our guy's feet, maybe make it 2. Look at this real-time. Look at that. Yeah. We got crazy high displacement. We get this really nice depth of field. All this stuff, the displacement looks good. Satisfying depth of field and all that stuff. We can turn it off really quick. We don't have to refresh a bunch. And if we wanted to, we could just come in here and change the material. So let's go ahead and pause it. It will need to rebake a material when it brings it in, but then, you know, we'll get the same kind of effect. So let's go ahead and go to surfaces, and we'll do something completely different, like historical floor. Mossy stone floor. We'll do 4K. I don't want to worry about getting. I don't want to. So hopefully that makes sense, and like seeing that, you know, now like it's possible to just come in and make landscapes really quickly and easily inside of the real-time renderer. Well, the only thing the real-time renderer is really lacking is volumes right now, volumetric support, and they're working on it. It's on the list. But the cool thing is somebody, you know, commented in the video releasing these patch notes, and they said, okay, now bring that to the real-time render engine, right? 0.5 and 0.5, and we'll slap it on here. Just replace that. Now we'll hit play. And is music too loud? I'll turn it down. Okay. Turn it off for you guys. Basically, they said, hey, bring that to the regular render time engine. And Redshift replied with a smiley face. So I guess it's coming. Let's do 15 and 15. Turn off this small one. We don't even need that, really. Okay, let's make it even smaller. 35 and 35. It was 4K and not 8K, so. Come in here and change this, and it's just going to kind of instantly do that pretty quick for us. Updating geometry. Hold on. Okay. But we have pretty good real-time results here. Right? We'll crank this up to like 30. And again, at the field, turn that on quick. Pretty cool. Pretty good for look dev, right? And sleeping on real time a little bit. Getting better. So now what you do, right? If you do an OSL shader and stuff, but let's say you have this. What I want to do is just basically create another landscape, change the seed of this landscape. Unpause that real quick. Pause it. Change the seed. So it's like cutting into our landscape at different spots. You can mess with the scale, like so maybe. Maybe pull it down so it's like kind of way there. We could do another one, and then maybe this one gets this material on it. That one's set to 20 and 20, or maybe what was it, 15. So then you start like layering these together and get quick little nice results. And obviously you could do a little more control and art direction to it, but for a quick look, you could start mixing things like different grounds that look similar, stuff like that, and you're really going to start getting a really nice looking thing really quickly and easily, just inside of Redshift, really quick inside of that. You know, art direct your light pretty quickly and easily. Mode as well. So this is something else a little more like these rocks. Like let's bring in different rock and we'll finish up with that. Not historical, obviously. Different ground. This is like kind of the same thing, but not quite as rocky, right? Export. Looks pretty good, right? For real time. You don't have to worry about the tessellation and all that stuff, but you still have to know how to set it up in order to get it looking right. So, Alright, so go in here, of course, swap this to -0.5. This is 0.5, and this needs to be raw. And we'll take that and just replace that stone with it. So this will change, and we'll make it maybe see what 25 and 25 does. Loading overloaded. There we go. Now you can see how you could mix those together very quickly and easily, and then you can just grab, another clone of that, change the seed of that one, and really start blending those in there. Get some really high poly stuff going on really quickly, and then really look to have very quick and easy like that, and then do another big one. Change the seed of that one, change the scale of all this stuff, amount of furrows, all that jazz. Pretty quick. Obviously, we can kind of overload our scene a little bit here, but it's kind of a nice way to kind of very easily, roughly mix some landscapes and stuff together. We can smaller and make it border to sea level. You just kind of bring it in. That right there, yeah. Now we've got like rocky bits, more rocky bits. We could pull this back over this way, so it's kind of more in the shot back there. We got too much of this other one. Up. So maybe something like that, right? Then we've got a strip of that coming in. So we've got this one and then a strip of that. And then, we kind of just have a more natural looking thing. We don't see the tiling near as much. So you start just blending things in together in that way with more materials and stuff. You do it really fast in the real-time rendering. Pretty cool. So let's just say for the sake of everything, we take this all back to the default settings, right? All screen space adaptive, and it's all set to 10 and 10. And this is set to 8. I might freeze things, we'll see. All right, here we go. Everything's a default. So let's say we brought it in and we fixed our materials to be -0.5 and 0.5 and to be raw, right? And that's all we did. And we left everything else default. It's not bad. Not bad at all. So, and we still have real time. Looks pretty good. There you go. Hopefully that helps kind of demystify displacement a bit. And it kind of just seems like we should have just left it alone. Obviously change the negative positive values and make it raw, but then just using the real-time displacement is the way to go. But I did like how much I do want my rocks to pop more. So like these two, I would say maybe 20 and 20 because I want these to pop. Boom. So yeah, can get much better than that. Nanite. Then obviously depth field again just makes it. There, bam. Cool. All right. Hopefully that helped. I know it was a little random, but pretty cool. All right, y'all.